You're listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast, your new favorite podcast for everything Bills and Sabres. What is going on, everybody? You are listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast, your favorite podcast for all things Bills and Sabres with the pals, Nigel, Tom, and Jake. Episode 39 coming at you. Quick reminder, follow our social medias. You can find us at the handle at Let's Go Buff Pod. That's Buff with 2 F's on Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube. Boys, we got a new coach in Buffalo. Tommy, how we doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm incredible. I'm pumped to hear what you guys have to say about the new guy in town.
Yeah, dude, me as well. Torpedo, how you feeling, buddy?
Yeah, the new old guy in town.
The new old guy.
I'm good. I was at the gym. I rushed back for this emergency episode.
Yeah, dude, we knew we had to do it. Jake, I'm thinking let's just start. Okay, so first of all, before anybody yells at me, Tom is having his own beer corner. This is going to be like a short 20-minute pod just to discuss a couple things, 20, 30 minutes just to get the initial reactions and go over a few things. So real quick, Tommy, what are you drinking, buddy?
It's a nice white can called Canvas from Foam. It's a pale ale and super tasty, and I like my own private little corner here. This is the corner I want to be sent to.
Nice, the beer corner.
Yes.
Tom, get back to the beer corner. Cool, love it. Torpedo, are you dying to get some initial thoughts off your chest, bro? You want to go first, or do you want to pass it back to me?
Sure, I'll be brief. I've kind of gone back and forth. I mean, first of all, this was a quick decision. We talked about this. We recorded last Tuesday after they fired Don Granato that day. So 6 days later, they've hired a new head coach. We talked about how it could be a quick decision because Kevin Adams kind of had his mind on some people that we talked about. This was way quicker than even I was expecting. I thought a couple of weeks would be quick, and long term would be like a month or so.
6 days is fast.
6 days is fast. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I go back and forth. I mean, there's the nostalgia element. Like I think it has to be said. I love Lindy Ruff. He was a great coach. He was the coach of the team when I was a kid. He's the first coach that I ever watched coach the Sabres. So there's that element. I love the guy. I love the person. I loved him as a coach. He coached through some of the most successful years that the team's ever had. So from that standpoint, love him. But I also keep going back to nostalgia doesn't win you games. I need the coach today to be ready to push the team forward and win now and drive them to success. So those two things aren't mutually exclusive, but I need the second one to be a lot more impactful than the nostalgia element. I think that's what's happening, but time will tell. Those are my initial thoughts. What did you think when you saw the news?
We felt shockingly similar about this, dude. It did feel like a little bit too quick, dude. And I had a coworker be like, I bet it's as early as next week. And this was like Thursday of last week. And I was like, no shot, dude. And here we are. It's Monday, April 22nd. And the Sabres have indeed hired Lindy Ruff as their coach already. Okay, so one good thing that Kevin Adams did say, and this made me feel better, is it fluff? Maybe. Does he mean it? Maybe. He did go out of his way to say this was not a nostalgic hire. He is of the opinion at this point in time that Lindy Ruff is objectively the correct coach for this team. My question then becomes, I want to know who else was interviewed, dude. This feels like it's so quick that if it was Lindy Ruff and Seth Appert interviewed, I'm going to be pissed, dude, when, Craig Berube and, a plethora of other guys were out there, Gerard Gallant, all those cats. So if, it comes out that he interviewed nobody, I'm going to be really upset. That being said, dude, look at what Lindy Ruff has done recently with the Devils. I know he got fired this season. I don't think that was a representation of Lindy Ruff. I think it was goaltending. I think that GM failed to address their goaltending situation. And I think Lindy Ruff, got his head lopped off as a result of that, just as many coaches do when shit like that doesn't go right. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't think he's got it anymore. Prior to this season, I mean, look at what the Devils were last year. They were absolutely sick, and they had some rough moments there, but I think Lindy showed that he is able to adjust his coaching style to a new type of player, which is a younger player, probably a little bit wimpier than he, was back in the day or was coaching back in the day, frankly. So he's demonstrated that he has the ability to, to change with the times. So many of these players were saying that they were looking for accountability and structure. And by God, if there is one thing they are going to get with Lindy Ruff, it is structure and it is accountability. So, you check those boxes, you get NHL coaching experience. So all in all, I think it's a great hire. I'm just worried that we never even looked at anybody else.
Yeah, I hope they did. They should have looked at other places too. I don't care how made up Kevin Adams' mind was. He's got to do some due diligence and look around the coaching market and see and make sure that Lindy Ruff is the best candidate for the job. So, like you said, I mean, we talked about it last week. I think his mind was made up about moving on from Granato a few weeks back.
Correct.
And Lindy Ruff has not been coaching, so we don't know what conversations happened between him and other coaches that also weren't coaching in those few weeks. Mm-hmm. He could have had unofficial interviews off to the side. I don't know if there's any CBA or rules that would be broken with that, but he could have been having those conversations. So I agree with you. I hope you're right. I hope there was some due diligence done around that process.
One thing that does give me, sorry, I'll go real quick. One thing that does give me a little bit of comfort there is Kevin Adams has to get this right? Yes. Like he can't fumble this hire. So like if he didn't do his due diligence and like there's only one person that's going to there's going to be a lot of us that are going to suffer. But Kevin Adams, I mean, his job depends on this hire, I think. So I would imagine that he feels dead ass confident in this hiring, which does make me feel better.
Agreed. Yeah. And totally. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Don Granato was definitely in the organization when Kevin Adams was hired as the general manager. But was Don Granato the head coach already when Kevin Adams was hired?
I don't think that he was. No.
Okay. So let's say he did hire Don Granato as head coach. This is his second coach now. You usually get one or two coaches as a GM before your head's out the door too.
So I think. You know what, dude? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think he was the one that hired Don Granato as the head coach.
He very well could have been. But point being, this is his second hire. Yeah. I hope it's the right one. But I wanted to go back to the point you made about Lindy Ruff and his coaching style. Like he was known to be a pretty defensive coach earlier in his career, and obviously that was the style of hockey that was played in the NHL, and it's refreshing to see that what he was able to do with that young, fast, transition-oriented Devils team that I think a lot of people were comparing that Devils team to the Sabres and how they were played a similar style and how they had a similar build and makeup of players. So I think that is encouraging, and I think he can adapt. And look, I think one of the biggest issues with the team this year, and we talked about this, was accountability and just being mentally soft. If he can instill some confidence in them and get them ready to play, I think that there's a lot of runway there. It doesn't have to be, all right, we need a coach that's going to come in and teach these guys the X's and O's of a system to get them ready to play NHL hockey. They need to be mentally ready and just prepared to play 82 games, 60 minutes. If that can happen, dude, they make the playoffs, in my opinion.
So, like, kind of on that point, I was doing some research on this hire, and there was a quote from the Devils GM, Tom Fitzgerald, and kind of addresses a little bit of that. So this is the quote: "I started to see some things that I value as a team that weren't changing." This is in reference to Lindy getting fired in March. But then you saw the change. You saw a good game. You saw the details come, and then you wouldn't see it the next game. the inconsistency started to creep up. If you told me that was about the 2023-2024 Sabres, I would buy that. So are you concerned about those, like that kind of those words?
I'm gonna go first on this one, and I am honestly, I'm gonna say no, dude, because this Devils team, their biggest issue was like, maybe there was some underlying things with Lindy Ruff, but that I didn't even notice. And the reason I didn't notice them was because their biggest issue was so glaringly goaltending. Like, if you're the best coach on the planet, you weren't fixing that. Right. So Tom Fitzgerald, he's got to say something as the GM. I'll be willing to chalk that up to him just needing to say something, because that goaltending situation in Jersey was an absolute train wreck, dude. So like, and he's not going to say that because that's a reflection on him, Tom Fitzgerald, right? You didn't,
by not fixing not signing the players that he needed to, or addressing the problem when he could have. Yeah. Okay.
My honest thought is the truth was the goaltending was a disaster. He needed to do something. He wasn't going to blame himself as the guy still a part of the organization. So he said some stuff about Lindy. You know, that's my thought. Jake, do you feel differently?
I don't feel differently. I think both things can be true.
Totally.
You don't know what the timbre was like in the locker room with him and the players. We've talked about it last week too. Like it's easy to lose the voice in the room and need a fresh one. So he was there for, I don't know, 3-4 years. So it just could have gotten stale and contributed. You can win with subpar goaltending, but it becomes a lot harder. You have to overcome it, and they clearly weren't able to. So I agree with you. Tom Fitzgerald sat on his hands, and maybe the goalie market wasn't where it needed to be for him to make a move, something like that. But yeah, it was a wasted season for them because of the goaltending, for sure.
Fair. Yeah.
So I guess to sum it up, it does concern me a little, but I think that can happen with any team. I think you can apply that quote to all 32 teams at some point. So
true. Yeah. I just know that was such a big issue for the Sabres this season. That's like, you got to be able to put it together more than one game in a row, right? Like, otherwise, you're up a freaking tree. Like, so I don't know.
It's a great call.
Now, what do you guys like about? I mean, we've kind of coming up to this decision. We talked about last week of, do we want to coach with lots of experience? We want to coach with a little bit of experience. I mean, this guy has tons of experience, right? Like the 5th most winning coach in the NHL. Is that where you guys want it to be, or what are your thoughts there? 4th?
I thought it was 4. If you include playoffs. If you include playoffs.
4th. Yes, that's what I saw. That was the stat. Yeah, regular season 5th, including postseason is 4th. Jake, you little number man.
Jake the number man.
Yeah, can't get eaten by him. So what do you? I mean, is this the kind of the experience that you want?
Jake, you want to take this one first? I went first last time.
Sure. Yes, I think so. It's the biggest thing that the players were clamoring for on locker cleanout day was accountability, to be pushed and to be broken a little bit, for lack of a better term. Like they want the whip to be cracked a little bit. And I think they're going to get it, but I think that they're not going to get it in such a drastic sense as some other coaches might. Like Lindy Ruff is not John Tortorella, for example. You know, I think he can still be punishing and hold guys accountable, but he's also a player's coach at the end of the day. That a quote from Mike Weber when he was asked about Lindy Ruff, that he's very in your face, but it's all about the team. It's all about the greater goal. Mike Weber also said you would see him being hard on guys in practice, in games, whatever it was, and then sitting down the next day, having breakfast, coffee, and just shooting the shit. So I think that's a good transition, because Don Granato was kind of half of that equation. He was too comfy and too cushy with the players, where it was a lot of take and no give. So I think Lindy Ruff will have more balance for them. I hope that it's enough. I hope that they respond to the pushback that Lindy Ruff will give them, because I think they need that. They were clamoring for that, and that's something that a lot of people were talking about was going away from the game. So it was really interesting to see Buffalo players come out and beg to be pushed that hard. But I think it's refreshing. I think it's good. I think they need that. That's why they didn't succeed, was the inconsistencies and not being held accountable for the way that they were failing on the ice often.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nash?
Jake, I think you literally just took all the words out of my mouth. Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I literally everything you said. I do think it's the right hire in terms of experience. I was not looking for a guy that I absolutely was not looking for a guy that had little NHL experience. So in terms of that, yes. And I think Jake is correct. Like, I think he is gonna be that nice happy medium, right? Like he is going to get in guys' faces. He's not going to be afraid to bench guys. Yes, you heard guys on these locker cleanout interviews being like, yeah, like we got away with some shit that we probably shouldn't have been able to get away with. And like you saw it from Clifton, Tage Thompson, you saw it from Alex Tuck. Like the list of guys that were clamoring, to use Jake's word, for this accountability was honestly shocking. So yeah, dude, in terms of that, we got our buddy Lyndon here that just said Lindy is an alpha. That's correct, dude. He's not a guy. He doesn't push any or pull any punches. He's a no nonsense guy. These guys want accountability and structure. They're going to damn well get it.
And they're going to get it, but they better not fucking complain about it. They were begging for it. They better show that they 100%. Can take it and go with it and succeed in the face of that. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a team that has some bite and some
hunger,
tenacity to them. Hunger, yeah, exactly, yes. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got one other quote from Michael Pekka, former Sabres captain under Lindy Ruff.
Son of a bitch! I can't believe he's not in the coaching staff. Go ahead.
I know. But he was talking about his experience with Lindy and how the team performed under him, and he said that when things weren't going well, the players weren't overreacting to it because Lindy wasn't overreacting to it. And I wanted to bring that up because this team, this young core, has talked about the immense pressure that they feel. And that's why they often cite as playing poorly on home ice. There's a lot of pressure. They want to perform well in front of the fans, and they get in their own heads when things start to not go well. Michael Pekka is out here saying that this is what one of Lindy's strengths is not overreacting to adversity, essentially, and helping keep the young kids even keeled and allowing them to push back and battle back into games. I think you saw that displayed with Buffalo when Briere, Drury, Miller, that young core was coming up. They were electric. It was a new game coming out of the lockout, and they had a lot of they were able to battle back from adversity often, early and often. So
yeah.
That quote from Michael Pekka I thought was telling. I think that's a fit for the team. So I hope that doesn't disguise itself as complacency when Lindy's behind the bench.
You know, that's funny that you say that. That was the word that was in my head as you were explaining this as a concern. I'm like, oh man, like, because sometimes I think like when shit isn't going right, sometimes I think you need like a little bit of bite in there, right? Like you can't, like, I don't know. If it's 1, 2 games, 3 games, yeah, you don't have to overreact, dude. But like, there was some times this season where I was begging for literally anybody to let alone overreact, just freaking react. Like that's what I felt like, that there was just so little passion on the team this year. So hopefully with that accountability that he's going to bring, the guys take a little bit more pride in what they're doing. You know, knowing that if they go out there and they lay an egg, they're gonna be on the bench. Like honestly, I think there's a couple guys in this team that need that to a degree. Yeah. I'm not saying every night, but like there's some dudes that need that a little bit, I think.
100%. And I think Granato showed passion sometimes. He showed he was angry at something, but it was always at like the refs. It was never your own team shot themselves in the foot. It's not the fucking refs' fault that you got a penalty in the third period when you're down 6-2, right? Yeah. So it felt performative sometimes. I don't think Lindy will take that. I think he will get in guys' faces and push a little bit. So
yeah. Tommy, you were saying before we hopped on here, you had a couple things. What did you cover them all, or is there anything?
Yeah, that was that Tom Fitzgerald quote that I snuck in that I was kind of interested to see, especially just talk about the inconsistency. And it was interesting to see that was seen as maybe a concern in New Jersey, and it's clearly a concern here in Buffalo. So I just wasn't sure what you thought about what Lindy might bring for it. Now, will Lindy bring any other like coaching staff that you guys might be excited about? Or are there other places that he could make an influence on this team?
He definitely will at some point. That's one of the things that I'm looking for most anxiously now, is to see what happens with his coaching staff. Is Marty Wilford still there? Is Mike Bale still there? Who does he bring in to replace? Or is Matt Ellis still there? Who does he bring in to replace the guys that got let go? Does he fire these guys that were retained? So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, and really important to see who he surrounds himself with. I'll be very interested to see if he retains Marty Wilford. I imagine Mike Bales is going to stay, given what he's done in the last little bit with UPL. It'll be really interesting to me to see if Marty Wilford remains in the same position. I have to imagine Matt Ellis is going to move into a player development role. I don't think you're going to see him on the bench next year. But who knows, dude? It'll be very interesting to see what Lindy Ruff does. Does he bring guys from Jersey? So we'll see on that whole thing. Jake, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, agree. It definitely you're not just subbing in the head coach and the rest is going to stay the same. There'll definitely be other changes. So I don't think they're important. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that they'll happen in such a rapid fashion as this did. It could be after the draft, even once teams get knocked out, other coaches start leaving their jobs or being asked to leave their jobs. Could filter out then. We'll see. I think that's a conversation to have closer to the season and see who slots in. But.
Totally.
Yeah.
Jake, did you have anything else you wanted to bring to the table here with this?
I guess closing thoughts. The nostalgic part of me feels good. Will this
like your uncle coming home? Is that kind of thing? Or grandpa?
A little bit, dude.
Absolutely. But from the will this help the team? I desperately hope so, and I think it can, but I need to see other things kind of progress that way for me to believe it before I am able to fully put aside the nostalgia piece and say, okay, this is that right head coach for this team. So
yeah,
overall, I'm like 80% thumbs up, but there's some nagging doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude, I remember I remember where I was when Lindy Ruff got fired all those years ago. I was in Gap at Eastview Mall with my mom and dad. And I was like, dude, Dad, they just
so specific.
Right, dude. But I remember it so clearly. I was like, oh my God, Dad, they did it. They fired Lindy. And he was just like, we were both just so stunned, dude, because up to that point, I think the entire time that I had been a hockey fan, and he didn't start until I was, Lindy was the coach. So it was just like, wow, dude, it was just like so crazy. The only other thing, my closing thought here is, in this coaching carousel, in my opinion, we've really only gone the legit tons of NHL experience hire one time, and that was with Dan Bilesma. Would you agree with that, Jake? Were there other guys that you would put in that bucket?
Not yet. In recent years, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, and that didn't go well. And I think that's going to be a fear that people are going to have. The only thing I would say with that is, I think this roster is eons better than the roster that Dan Bilesma had. So I think people should, if that's a concern that they have, we should try and let that go, because I think this roster is significantly better.
And I think there's a reason that Dan Bilesma is not coaching in the NHL anymore.
Correct. Yeah, I would. He's got a Stanley Cup, but yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby, for the cup ring. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely. Real quick before we sign off here, Lyndon had another really interesting question here for us. Can Lindy have an influence on bringing in new blood due to his league-wide respect? Jake, one word answer.
One word answer. I guess I'm not sure if they're talking about players or coaches, but
I would say players. Just a short answer.
I'll say no. I'll say no, and I think he has a lot of work to overcome with the Sabres' reputation over the past decade plus. So I think it's possible, but I don't think it's enough on its own.
I will politely disagree. I think he will. I think he does. I think when you're a coach that's coached this many years, does have success, I think that demands a level of respect. So I think, yeah, I guess we'll see, man. Who knows? Who knows for sure? Jake, you wanna take that one there?
Boys, I have an idea. Pops, we're gonna need your idea, I think, to toss it around.
Oh man. So yeah, Tom has it. Tom, you want to touch on our banner that's below here?
I would love to, folks. If you're new here, please drop a like, give us a follow, press that little bell button on YouTube, and you'll get notified every time we go live because we're here every week. And we'd love to hang with you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We're going to be back tomorrow for a Tuesday pod, and then Thursday, an extra bonus hang-a-thon with Nigel and me. We're going to be here for the NFL draft and kind of talking anything and everything. It could be all about the Bills, all about the division, all about the rest of the NFL. We're going to have guests on, which will be super fun, and we'll be hanging. There are clearly lots of places to watch this NFL draft, and if you're looking for just a fun hang and kind of just be one of the pals, this is the spot for you. So we're going to be live to YouTube, live to Twitter, right here, 8 p.m. on Thursday, and we'd love to see you. So, guys, should we get the heck out of here?
Yeah, I'm ready, boys. Good initial thoughts here. Let's go Sabres. New chapter.
Yeah,
yes,
go
sir.
Sabres, boys. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. We do really appreciate it. If you could please give us a like, a follow, a share, everything good about that stuff on Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube at Let's Go Buff Pod with 2 Fs. These are my buddies. That's Nigel, that's Jake, and my name is Tom, and you're listening to the Let's Go Buffalo podcast. We're sending you love wherever you are. Go Bills, go Sabres, let's go Buffalo.